Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bleacher Takes. It's your boy Tim here. Don't got Josh or Nate tonight. So you just got me, but I'm the best looking and smartest of them anyway. So, you got the best one in here. But glad you guys are joining me here on this lovely Sunday evening. Got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to get into. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I always love doing these podcasts on a Sunday night, but then once I'm done, I have a realization of, oh man, I got to go back to work tomorrow. So hope you guys are just trying to relax and in the same boat as me. Got a couple things that I want to hit on real quick today. The Open there in Scotland got finished. And man, it looked like Rory McIlroy, was in the driver's seat this weekend. To me, right now, he's the best golfer in the world. I'd take Rory over anybody at this point. Obviously, he finished his third, 18 under in this tournament. I still think he's the best right now, but he had a tough day today. I think they said he had 36 putts, so he was two putting every hole today and still finished 2 strokes away from the lead. So Cameron Smith did finish with the win there, finished 20 under and dropped a birdie, I believe it was, on 18. A pretty nice eagle shot, an eagle chance there, but just missed it. He had a fantastic day. Didn't record anything over a par on the day and finished with what I'm seeing as 8 birdies. So the guy was fantastic. Rory just couldn't capitalize, only had 2 birdies and par the rest of everything else. If he could have cleaned up a couple of those putter shots, I mean, he really could have won this thing. But yeah, it was pretty exciting to be watching this. The Open's one of my favorite tournaments to watch. I love the way that the course is set up there in Scotland. Be great for me to be able to play on it someday. I'm not a great golfer by any means, but I think it would be pretty cool to go out there and watch or go out there and play on that. But yeah, Cameron Smith finished first. Cameron Young finished in second. Finished just 1 stroke behind. I mean, both Camerons were tied coming into the day. Young finishes with 65. That's 7 under par. Smith finished 8 under par on the day. So pretty fantastic golfing there by those two. Big names finished in the top 10 though. Bryson DeChambeau and Jordan Spieth finished 8 under, or tied for 8th, at 12 under. Dustin Johnson tied for 6th. Victor Hovland tied for 4th. A lot of big names up there. My boy Scottie Scheffler finished tied for 21st, 9 under, had a 2-over day. He was right in the thick of things. I think he was 2 strokes off the lead coming into the day and just had a rough day. He had 4 bogeys, so just things weren't going his way today. But it was fun to watch, fun to always follow those things, and was excited to see that. Tiger looked, like himself this week. He wasn't obviously his dominant self, but I think those days are behind him. But just for him to just be competitive, really shows the truly miraculous that's happened to him. I mean, he's been through those big injuries and car crash and all that stuff, and for him to come back, I mean, he missed the cut, but still, I mean, he played pretty well. I was excited to see that. I don't think that we're going to see a whole lot more of him. I don't think he's going to be golfing a whole lot much longer, which is sad. But again, all good things come to an end, and just exciting to see him come back from what he has been through. I want to talk boxing here for just a minute. I know we don't have a whole lot of boxing fans out there that listen, but I do want to touch on a big fight that happened this weekend. Ryan Garcia fought Javier Fortuna yesterday in LA. Garcia is one of those guys that is really big on social media. Has a really big following. They call him King Garcia, King Ryan. He's a guy that I've followed for a while. He's got lightning quick hands, and pretty fun guy to follow on socials, to really watch and to see. And he's undefeated. He's backing up all the things that he is saying about himself. Dubs himself as the best boxer in the world right now. I mean, he's 22-0. Hasn't. I mean, in this fight, they weren't giving him, a landslide victory. In the sports books, they thought it'd be close, but he knocked down Javier 3 times in this fight, and then in the 6th round, Javier just got knocked down and spit out his mouth guard and said, "I'm done." Garcia really manhandled him. And then after the fight, he then calls out old Tank Davis, and he wants him to compete against him at the 140 weight. Garcia is fighting at 140. Davis fights at 135. It doesn't seem like a big difference, but when you're a boxer, that's a big difference. But they want to fight at 140. Tank is coming back from an injury right now, but after the fight, he sent out a tweet and said that see y'all at the end of the year, #the1. So we could see this happen. I don't know. I'd be very excited to see. Davis has a very strong Twitter following, very big social media star as well. These two guys are just two of the biggest stars in boxing right now. I mean, there's really no way around that, and I think these two are on a collision course. Davis is 26-0, and like I said, Garcia is 22-0. So I think it would be one of those fights that a lot of these boxing fans will like to see, and I can't wait to see what happens between the two of them, and just see what happens. Garcia got a lot of heat from a lot of the things he's been doing lately. He took time away from the sport. First he got injured, or second he got injured, but first it was due with his mental health, and I think it was just pretty eye-opening for people. But he came back and he looked better than ever. Excited to see what happens in his future and who he gets to go against. And Jake Paul, a lot of people don't see him as a real boxer. I think we're going to find out soon how real he is. He's in the headlines all the time, but he's fighting Hasim Rahman Jr. on August 6th in New York. And Paul told ESPN, he was on First Take on Tuesday and said that his goal is to be the light heavyweight champion of the world in 3 to 4 years. He wants to fight the biggest names in the sport. Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. The 175-pound titles are held by those two. They're number 7, number 8 in the pound-for-pound rankings. And, I mean, see a guy like Jake Paul try to fight guys like that, it seems pretty far-fetched. But Paul's 5-0. He's got 4 KOs. And this guy, this Hasim Rahman, I mean, is a guy who really has a lot of boxing history, and a guy that I think is going to be a really big test for him. And, I mean, if he can look good against him, why not? Yeah, continue going on. No, I don't think that he should take the spot that has been earned by a lot of these other boxers who are waiting their turn for a title shot. But if he continues to beat these, if he beats him and then, goes and maybe fights, a couple of the big contenders for the 175-pound belt, why not? Why not go out there and prove yourself? Paul says that he's not focused on being a social media star anymore. He's not focused on anything else. He's focused on being a boxing champion. So we'll see. We'll see how well he faces against Rahman here. I mean, he was supposed to face Tommy Fury, which I had a feeling was going to fall out. It did last time, and then this time, Tommy Fury couldn't get into the U.S. due to some undisclosed reasons, but he was denied entry. So, interested to see. Jake Paul's one of those guys that, I don't. For the boxing purist, maybe he's not good for the sport, but for the sport of boxing in general, he's very good for the sport. Boxing is one of those sports people thought that was it was dying. UFC was kind of taking its spot. UFC obviously has grown tremendously over the past 10 years. And boxing has really dwindled down. But if a guy like Jake Paul, who already has all these followings on social media, if he can become a star in this sport, they're going to get the recognition that the boxers deserve. So, maybe it's not against guys that they think deserve the shot, but Paul's going to get you those views. Paul's going to get you where you need to be as far as the sport goes. So I welcome it. I kind of like him. I like watching him box. I like watching some of the things he has to say. He's entertaining for sure. Big guy. He doesn't move his hands super well, but I think that, he's working on his speed. But, I mean, he's huge. So excited to see what happens with that. And I want to see how he fares against a quote-unquote real boxer. So we'll see how that goes. Got a couple NBA things to hit on here real quick. I don't know if you guys saw this past week, DeAndre Ayton got a 4-year, $133 million offer from the Indiana Pacers. Since he was a restricted free agent, the Phoenix Suns had a chance to match that offer sheet from the Pacers, and they did immediately. They didn't want to lose him. Obviously, if they wouldn't have matched it, they would have lost him to the Pacers for nothing. Ayton was the number 1 overall pick in 2018, I believe. You don't want to lose that kind of talent for nothing. Obviously, 4 years, $133 million is a lot of money. And so it kind of ties up the Suns. It kind of has to keep them with the core they have now because they can't really go out and do a whole lot because they're having to spend more money on Ayton than they probably were wanting to do. But again, how do you lose a guy like that? But I will say this probably does take them out of the Kevin Durant sweepstakes because with Ayton in this contract he's signing, he can't get traded until January 15th. And that's even if he agreed to the trade. He's got a full year that basically a no trade clause where he can say no for the next year. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Kevin Durant. There's a lot of rumblings out there that the trade talks have died off. The Nets are almost willing to just keep Kevin Durant, even though Durant has requested a trade out. He has requested to leave the Nets. Obviously, they've been very documented. We've talked about it a lot on our podcast here. But it seems like the Nets aren't getting overwhelmed with trade offers like they thought they were going to. We thought it would take basically the whole kitchen sink to get him, and apparently that's what the Nets think. They're not getting these offers that they were envisioning, I guess. The favorites to land him is still the Miami Heat. They sit at plus 200, basically a 33% chance of him being traded there. I think that they have a slew of young players in which that they can use as trade pieces. Obviously, the biggest one being Tyler Hero. They do have Duncan Robinson, a great shooter. Gabe Vincent and their rookie, Nikola Jovic, who looked very good. And I know it's summer league, but he looked very good in the summer league. They can do away with Max Strus as well. I mean, they've got a couple picks in there as well. There's a lot of finagling they can do. They look like they have the best shot to do so. But I think that the Nets, they were wanting to start talks with them with Bam Adebayo. But the unwritten rule, it is a written rule, I'm sorry, but a rule that's just kind of strange is they can't have 2 max rookie level contracts on their team in which they traded for, and they already had that in Ben Simmons. So unless they got rid of Ben Simmons, they can't get Bam Adebayo. It's just this whole mess. But the Heat are still the favorites to land Durant. But the Raptors, they move to a near 30% chance to land Durant. They see them as a team that can offer, quite a bit. People don't think of the Raptors being super young, but, they got OG Anunoby. He's a guy that, gets really overlooked in the league. He's a very solid player. They have Gary Trent over there. They've got a lot of picks they can throw at him. But again, I think the Nets are just really wanting to be overwhelmed, and it doesn't seem like they're getting anywhere close to that. Durant is an aging player, but he's got 4 years left, I believe, on his deal. Still, one of the top players in the league. A team that you put him into the right, a player you put on the right team and the right core, they automatically make you, championship favorites. So interested to see what happens with him. But it really does take the Suns really out of it. The Suns can still offer Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, draft picks, that kind of thing. But, before, if they were able to do something with DeAndre Ayton, then maybe. But, without Ayton, and obviously the Suns don't seem like they're willing to give up Devin Booker, which I wouldn't be either. It seems like Durant might have to stay in Brooklyn. And that would be pretty interesting because it seems like, Kyrie's probably going to get traded. which who knows where he's going to go. But it would be pretty funny if we start next year and Durant and even Kyrie, if they're both still on the Nets roster, it'd be pretty funny. But I still think a deal is going to get done. But I think either one of two things is going to happen. Teams are really going to have to up their bid and really up their offer and blow away the Nets, or the Nets are going to have to realize, we're not the ones with all the leverage here. Yeah, they have the player, but the player wants out. And Durant could say, hey, I'm not going to play for you, and just not show up. So they have to trade him. You want to get something for him, obviously. You can't just have this asset sitting on the sidelines. So I think, push is going to have to come to shove at some point on one side and the other. So we'll see what happens there. Another guy I want to talk about trade rumors with is good old Donovan Mitchell. If we had Bleacher Takes back when he was in the draft, you guys would have heard me ranting and raving about this guy. I love Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a great player. I loved him at Louisville. I think he was great in the tournament. He was great in the ACC tournament that year. Just an overall great player. I think he's a player that really impacts your roster for sure. I don't know that at this point in his career and his development that he is, good enough to be the best player on a championship team, but definitely good enough to be the second best player. And maybe he could grow into that. But a player as young as he is, with a lot of upside, a lot of potential still in there. I mean, if we want to look up, this guy's been insane in his career. The start that he's had scoring wise, I'm pulling up his stats right now. In his career, he's a 23.9 points per game scorer. He averaged 26 points per game last year, 26.5 the year before, 24 the year before that. The playoffs, we all know what this guy does. His playoff game logs probably look insane because I just know from watching him in the playoffs and knowing him just from the back of my head how well this guy has played. I know that they're probably insane this year. He had that 9-point dud against Dallas, but 3 games and 30 points there. Before that series last year against the Clippers, dropped 39, 37, 37, 45 against the Clippers, and averaged 28 points per game. Series before that against Memphis in the playoffs. And then the one year we all remember in 2020 against Denver, when they lost in Game 7. He only had 22 points in that game, but the game before he had 44, and he had 51 and 57 in 2 games in that one. So a guy that can really take over a playoff game and really just take over any game. This is a guy you want on your squad. And as a Knicks fan, I am very much wanting him on the squad. But I think it's going to take a lot. Obviously, the Timberwolves just got a haul for Rudy Gobert, and they're looking to get a haul and more on Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's obviously younger. He's a guard, and guards are more probably more valuable in today's game as opposed to centers are. But, Rudy Gobert is the best defensive player and center in the league. But I think it's going to take a lot, and I have a couple teams here who I think can offer it. The Knicks, obviously, they've got some young players: Emmanuel Quickly, Miles McBride, Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin. They have a slew of first-round draft picks in which they can give. They have a 2023 first-rounder from Washington, a 2023 first-rounder from Detroit, 2025 first rounder from Milwaukee, and then their own first round picks in 2023 and 2025, which, if you didn't know, NBA teams cannot trade their first round picks in consecutive years. So that's why they can't trade their 2024 in this scenario here. But that's 5 first round draft picks, both from them and from other teams and these young players. And I think it could be enough to entice the Jazz to go ahead and send Donovan Mitchell their way. I've heard a lot of things about people saying it would take RJ Barrett, which I don't agree with that because the Knicks have the capital elsewhere to trade. Now, if they didn't have all these first-round draft picks that they were hoarding, then yes, maybe. But why would the Knicks make this move? Like, do they think that they're close enough that if they take away RJ and move in Donovan, like obviously Donovan Mitchell's a better player than RJ Barrett, but is he enough of a better player to elevate the roster? I don't know. I think that, Donovan Mitchell could work well with RJ Barrett. They could play well alongside each other and with Jalen Brunson. Um, and I think Julius Randle would probably fit in there well too. But I think Julius Randle could go to the Jazz in this trade. One, to make money work, and two, to go put up big empty stats on the Jazz, and then the Jazz able to flip him and get a lot out of him as well. Maybe, at trade deadline, that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of things that can happen here. And obviously Donovan Mitchell has been tied to the Knicks a lot. He's really close with a guy who works on the Knicks, I believe. He used to be one of the trainers, I think, with the Jazz. And, Donovan Mitchell has ties to New York. I think he grew up in New York. Just a guy who has a lot of ties there. So we'll see what happens with them. Another crazy trade would be, with the Heat. Like I said, the Heat have all the assets in the world to trade for a guy like Kevin Durant, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Nikola Jovic, Gabe Vincent. They got a couple of first-round draft picks. They have a first-rounder from the Lakers in 2023, their own first-rounder. So, I think that they can definitely maneuver a trade there. Donovan Mitchell, I think, would fit very well in almost any system just because he's just a straight-up scorer. But we'll see what happens there. The Raptors, they can trade OG, Trent, and first-round draft picks, 2023, 25, and 27. If I'm the Jazz, I don't like that as much as what I can get from the Heat and what I can get from the Knicks. The Knicks, more their picks, and the Heat, their players. But maybe they really like OG. Maybe they really like Gary Trent. I don't know. But that's something there too. The Rockets could try to team them up with some other younger guys. I don't think they're going to get rid of Jalen Green. They're not going to get rid of Jabari Smith. I don't see this one happening as much because I think that they would really want, Jabari Smith, or they would really want Jalen Green. But if the Rockets could do this without giving them up, Ty Washington, 4 or 5 first-round picks, a couple of their other younger players. So, I don't know. I don't know what happens here. If I'm the Rockets, I think you're far enough away that, and you like what you see with Jalen Green, that you probably want to keep the guy. But I don't know that they've got a package good enough to compete with the other teams, like I said, the Knicks and the Heat, to make that work. But one other interesting trade I saw out in the old interwebs here. A 3-team trade with the Jazz, the Nets, and the Lakers, which surprisingly does not involve Kevin Durant. Doesn't involve Kevin Durant at all. It involves Kevin Durant staying on the Nets, which, if you're Durant and you can get these guys back, you might consider it. So I'll tell you who the Jazz get. First of all, the Jazz get Ben Simmons from the Nets. Obviously, a young, promising player who, you know what you have with him, but there's also some excitement there. A guy who can just go to Utah, not really be in the bright lights as much, maybe not be as much of a crybaby as he's seen elsewhere. I don't know. Maybe Ben won't like it there. I could see him being like, hey, I'm not going to play for you guys. But, take all personalities aside, Jazz would get Ben Simmons. The Lakers 2027 and 2029 first-round draft picks, which Lakers don't own any of their first-round draft picks hardly anymore. They've given them all away. And then they'd also get the first-rounder from the Nets that is from either Houston or Philly, and then the 2027 first-round draft pick they have from Philly as well. So 4 picks and Ben Simmons, while the Lakers, which obviously if Kevin Durant's not the guy getting traded, it's Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving goes to the Lakers, and they also get Nickeil Alexander-Walker from the Jazz, which I think would be a really good pickup to fit there on the Lakers. And the Nets. So obviously, if Kyrie Irving goes to the Lakers, that means Russell Westbrook's going to the Nets. And if Durant wants to play with him again, I think it'd be interesting to see that. But Donovan Mitchell goes to the Nets in this trade as well. So the Nets would have Russell Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell, and Kevin Durant. It's a pretty good trio there. If they can just have Westbrook be more of the shot creator as far as his passing goes and not shoot the ball as much. I mean, you got Donovan Mitchell, who's a 25 point per game scorer, and obviously Durant, who dropped 30 points per game in a season. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. I don't know if Kevin Durant ever wants to play with Russell Westbrook again. I guess we'll find out. But some of these trades are fun to play around with and see. But I really hope it goes to the Knicks. And I think we have the draft picks to really make it happen. Really depends on what the Jazz value, though. I mean, do they want good young players? If they do, the Heat's the way to go. If they want a lot of first-round draft picks so that they can build their own roster and build the guys that they want, the Knicks is the way to go. The Knicks have so many first-round draft picks. They've really accumulated them. So I don't know. I mean, I'd be very excited to see it happen, but not going to hold my breath or anything because, the Knicks are going to nick. But and now we're going to move on to some MLB talk. I do want to get through a couple of the weekend series here that we had happen before we get into anything else. But before that, I do want to say tonight is the MLB Draft, and it is pretty cool to see the top two players taken are both Major League veterans' sons. So Jackson Holliday, shortstop out of Stillwater, Oklahoma, went first overall to the Baltimore Orioles. Jackson Holliday's father is Matt Holliday. So obviously a former All-Star in the major leagues, a great player. His son goes number 1 overall. And number 2 overall is Drew Jones, who center fielder out of Georgia. His dad was Andrew Jones, another former MLB All-Star. He's an outfielder, a great hitter. So back-to-back sons. And then Kumar Rocker goes number 3 overall to the Texas Rangers, who, if you guys remember who the Mets took. They took him last year and didn't like his physical, so they didn't want to sign him to the money that Kumar wanted. He didn't sign, so now this year he's eligible again, which this does reunite Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, two aces from the Vanderbilt system when they were running roughshod through the college baseball there. They're reunited, and pretty cool to see. I like Kumar Rocker. I like his story. I think that, it's going to be fun to see them. But Easton, bro, I don't want to give up RJ Barrett, man. I don't think it moves the needle for the Knicks, but I do appreciate the comment there. But yeah, MLB scores from this weekend. We had 4 pretty good series happen. The White Sox played the Twins in a 4-game series, and the White Sox won 3 of 4. Game 1 was 12-2 in favor of the White Sox. Luis Robert hit a grand slam. Vaughn hit a home run in this game. Vaughn had a home run in the first game and the 4th game. He had a pretty nice series. Johnny Cueto, though, had a really nice start for the White Sox, and a guy that kind of just took a flyer on and had a really nice start. Good game for them. Game 2, the White Sox win again 6-2. Anderson and Engel both had big home runs. Kopech had a nice start. Kopech's had a really nice year. He had a very big start to the year, then kind of faltered some, got hit around for a little while, and now he's starting to shape things back up. Game 3, the Twins won 6-3. Lance Lynn, man, this guy is atrocious this year. He got lit up. His ERA 7.50. I know that he hasn't been off the injured list for very long, but he's been getting lit up out there. And White Sox really need to get him right if they want to make a run at anything here. So, and And he gave up all his runs, so all 6 runs on home runs. He gave up 3 home runs to Luis Arias, Carlos Correa, Polanco, all hit home runs. And Lynn, man, I mean, Lynn used to be a guy who could really limit hard contact and could strike out a lot of guys, and he's not really doing that. So they need him to get going. And then today they went 11-0. Dylan Cease with a 1-hitter through 7 innings. I think he really wanted to be a All-Star. I think he really should be. But Moncada, Vaughn, Harrison all hit home runs today. Big game for them. The White Sox, they've won 5 of their last 6. And, don't look now, but as far as the AL Central goes, White Sox are only 3 games back. They're at 500. 3 games back out of the Central. And we'll get to the standings here in just a little bit, but I think it's very interesting to see and interesting to note that for sure. Giants played the Brewers in a 4-game series, and the Giants win 3 of 4 of these, which is pretty interesting because the Giants, they looked almost dead. They looked like a team that it just wasn't going to be their year. But after taking 3 of 4, they're only a half game out of the wild card at this point. But game 1, it was Burns versus Rodon. Obviously, great pitching matchup. It lived up to the billing. This game had to go into extras. There was small ball being played all over, singles, walks, stolen bases, that kind of thing. But Brewers do take the game 3-2, and it would be the only game they would win this series. Game 2 would be 8-5. It looks like the Brewers were going to take this game. It was 5-2 going into the 9th inning, and in comes Josh Hader, who had been struggling coming into this game. But boy, nothing like this. Hader comes in, gives up 5 hits and 6 earned runs, and only records 1 out as they lose 8-5. Bart and Ruff hit home runs to make it a 1-run game. It was 5-4, and the bases then get loaded. Mike Yastrzemski, I know you'll love how I pronounce that name, but Yaz, as they call him, comes up, hits a grand slam off of Hader. And Hader's just, I think his ERA is over 4 now on the year. That's just what's, crazy about relievers. They have a couple bad outings and their ERAs shoot up. That's why I don't really like to use earned run average for relief pitchers, but it is really interesting to note, Hader's been on this huge skid right now. It looks like he just, I don't know. I was listening to a John Boy podcast, which I love John Boy. If you don't listen to him, go check him out if you really like sports. They're doing great things over there. But John Boy said that, Hader just had a kid. Seems like he's up late at night a lot. And seems like it's just not really working out in his favor. Hader really needs to find himself. The Brewers really need him to find his way back. Giants win game 3, 2-1. Rough homers in this one again. The go-ahead score is scored on a bases-loaded walk. So you love to see that. Good old-fashioned baseball there. And then game 4. Giants win 9-5, and it's actually not as close as that. There's 4 homers in this game. The Giants led by 9-6 in the 6th inning. Or 9-1 in the 6th inning, I'm sorry. So, it was an 8-run game. Brewers got some sloppy runs there in the last few innings. The Giants just won't go away. Like I said, they're a half game out of the wild card. And the Brewers, man, like I said last week, and like I'll say again, I think the NL Central is the worst division in baseball. I don't think that anybody has an argument with me there. They're the only division that has 3 teams with 50-plus win or 50-plus losses. And their first place team right now is 50-43 with a run differential of plus 25. They're just not a very good team, not a very good division. I think the Cardinals are the best team in this division, and they can't seem to put anything together. They're half a game out of their division, but I don't know. I'm not going to bet on either of these teams to win this because the division is just such a crapshoot. They're not good teams. The Orioles played the Rays, which we're talking about the worst division in baseball. Now we're going to talk about the best division in baseball, the American League East. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Yankees fan. Every team going into the All-Star break in the American League East is at 500 or better. Baltimore is 46-46. They're 500. They were on that big winning streak there. I think they won 8 in a row or something like that, 7 in a row. But they come in play Tampa Bay, 3-game series. The Rays win 2 of 3, which obviously Baltimore isn't a team that is ready to win now. But it's pretty nuts that they're at 500. If they didn't have to play the American League East, they'd probably be fine. They're 16-21 against the East, and are do some quick math here, for 2 games over 500 against the other ones. So I mean they're and when they play interleague, they're 7-4. It's just a team that they're pesky. They're gonna beat up on the other teams, and then go to the AL East and lose a lot. But they played the Rays. Game 1, the Rays won 5-4. Urias hit 2 home runs for Baltimore, and Mancini homered. But a big home run by Betancourt, who was just acquired by Tampa Bay in the past few weeks. He hit I believe it was a 2-run home run to put the Rays ahead, and they would win the game. I liked that signing by them. They're a team that's been devastated by injury, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But they're scratching and clawing, and somehow at the All-Star break, they're in second place in the AL East, holding on to the top wild card in the American League. Game 2, the Orioles win this one 6-4. I actually watched this game. Rosarina hit a home run, and Rutschman hit a home run as well. This game went into the 11th inning, and Ryan Mountcastle, who seemed like a trade target, someone they were going to use as trade bait. Orioles probably aren't going to trade and go for it, but they probably aren't going to trade a bunch of guys away either. Mountcastle comes through, a 2 RBI single in the top of the 11th, and they win the game 6-4. And today's game, the Rays win 7-5. Rosarina, Phillips, Mejia all homer for Tampa Bay, Odor and Hayes homer for the Orioles, but just better situational and more guys on base when they hit home runs for the Rays. So Rays win that series 2 out of 3, but big loss for the Rays in this series. Harold Ramirez, who's been hitting very well for them, broke his thumb in the series. So it seems like something that they're just fighting with, man. If this team could get healthy, they would be really, really, really good. Because like I said, they're the top AL wildcard team. Obviously a lot back from the Yankees right now, 13 games back. But they're still, they're 10 games over 500. They're a very, very, very good team. And then speaking of the Yankees did play the Red Sox this weekend in a 3-game series. Yankees won 2 out of 3. It was a very fun series for me as a Yankees fan. Game 1 I didn't like, but yesterday's game and today's game, oh yeah, a whole lot of fun for me. Game 1, the Yankees lost 5-4 in the 11th inning. Devers hit a home run off of the Yankees again. This guy's modern-day David Ortiz and better. He's a Yankee absolute killer. Vasquez also hit a home run and Dahlback. Stanton hit a home run. And this game went into the 11th inning, and Bogart scored on a wild pitch to win the game. In the top of the 11th, Yankees didn't score. But in the 9th inning, the Yankees tied it and then get bases loaded, nobody out. And I was sitting next to my wife on the bed saying, hey, Yankees are about to win. I'm telling you. Trevino, I believe it was, then grounds into a double play right to the pitcher. They throw it home, the first out and then the second out at first. And then they record the third out and don't score on a bases loaded, nobody out chance in the bottom of the 9th. Pretty disheartening there, and I think it really made the Yankees mad because they would proceed to score 27 runs in the next 2 games. Game 2 was 14-1. Judge and Carpenter, man, he should probably be an all-star. He's got 13 home runs and hasn't started that many games this year. I believe it was 13 home runs in 30 games. But they both homered twice in this game, Judge and Carpenter. And Tyone shoves. He goes 6 innings, gives up only 2 hits. They win 14-1. And then today is a 13-2 shellacking as well. Chris Sale gets hurt in this game, and it was pretty nasty. I saw it immediately. A comebacker right at him on the mound with only 2 outs in the first inning. Comes right at him. He's left-handed, and he tries to get his glove to hit the ball. Doesn't get it there fast enough, and it ricochets off his pinky and flies into right field. Pretty nuts to see, and his pinky was all sorts of like way over here and bent. You go watch the video. It's nasty. But yeah, not good for them. Chris Sale's been a guy who's just been ravaged by injuries, a guy who I think is obviously a great pitcher. He just can't stay healthy. And that's a freak accident right there. And who knows how long he's going to be out with that. But tough to see. I never wish injury on anybody, even on Red Sox. I hate the Red Sox, but I want to play them at their best and beat them at their best. And, sad to see that happen to Sale. Jeter Downs hits his first major league home run in this game, which is pretty cool to see. It was a 2-run home run off Garrett Cole at Yankee Stadium. And if you didn't know the story of Jeter Downs, his name is Jeter Dion Downs. And his mom named him after Derek Jeter and Deion Sanders. So pretty cool. His first MLB home run is in Yankee Stadium. That's pretty fitting. But a couple unsung heroes for the Yankees hit home runs. They won 13-2, and the game was already out of hand when these home runs happened. But Tim LeCastro hits a home run. He's only been activated by the Yankees for just a couple games here now. He's been hurt this year. And Joey Gallo, who's had an atrocious year, one of the absolute worst hitters in baseball right now, hit a home run. Yankees had 14 hits today. Garrett Cole went 7 innings, only gave up 4 hits, struck out 12, ERA of 3.02 on the year. So, he's having a Garrett Cole year. And a pretty crazy stat as we go into the standings here. The Yankees have a 13-game lead in the AL East. That's the biggest lead in the American League East at the All-Star break since divisional rounds began in 1969. Or since divisions were formed in 1969. It's the biggest AL East lead that's ever. It's insane. The Yankees' year has been absolutely incredible. They're 64-28, winning percentage of .696. They're only 5-5 in their last 10 games, but they're winning the games that really matter here. They have a plus 199 run differential. Really would have liked them to get one more run just to be an even 200 at the All-Star break, but if I get to complain, if that's the worst thing I can complain about, I'm doing pretty good. So Yankees are 37-12 at home, and still they're 11 games over 500 away. So they're just getting it done everywhere. They will open the All-Star break after the All-Star break with a game against Houston, which love to watch those games. Yankees, that's the team I think that is the scariest for them for sure. The Yankees lead the AL East by 13 games. Tampa Bay, Toronto, Baltimore, and Boston are all packed in there between 13 and 18 games back. Like I said, all teams 500 or better. Pretty incredible. The AL Central, Minnesota is hanging on to their lead. They're 50-44, but Cleveland's 2 games back and Chicago's 3 games back. I think the White Sox, if I'm going to make a prediction, which I'm going to kind of try to give a couple predictions here. I think the Yankees are obviously going to win the AL East. But I think the White Sox could probably come back and storm and win this division. One of the weaker, well, definitely the weakest division in the American League. And a division that I think that Chicago it's supposed to be theirs. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. And they're really just starting to turn it on, starting to, maybe get a little more healthy, pitch a little better. They need Lance Lynn to get going for sure. But if I had to bet on anybody to win this division, I'd say the White Sox. I don't think Cleveland's good enough. I think maybe they could trade some of their pieces at the deadline as well. And the Twins, I just don't think are good enough either. So I can see the White Sox winning that division. AL West obviously is led by Houston. They're 59-32. Seattle, though, 9 games back. Seattle's on a 14-game winning streak. Since they got in that fight with the Angels, they've gone on an absolute tear. Exciting to see what happens with them as it goes on. I mean, they're the second wild card team right now. We'll go over the wild cards here. Tampa Bay's first, half game behind them is Seattle. And then a game behind them is Toronto. Boston's 2 games out. Cleveland's 2.5. Baltimore 3.5 with Chicago as well. So that's going to be a fun race to see. I mean, Seattle, I don't think they can catch the Astros, but they can definitely take that top wild card spot from the Rays. I mean, the Rays continue to win, but again, when are those injuries going to catch up to them? Because I think it's going to happen, and it's sad to see. But my favorite race, though, my favorite race of all right now is the National League East. National League East, Mets are in a absolute dogfight with the Braves right now. The Braves are 2.5 games back and starting to really win some big games. 7-3 in their last 10. The Mets are 6-4 in their last 10. They just got Scherzer back, which obviously he's doing Scherzer things. They're going to get DeGrom back soon. I think the Mets can hold on, but I think the Braves are really coming for them. I think the Braves really want it. And if I'm going to pick one to win this division, I'm going to go with the Braves with right now how the roster is constructed. Obviously, I think the Mets are going to spin big at the deadline, which because Cohen's their owner, they're going to do some dramatic, crazy stuff. But right now, as their rosters look the way they are, I'm going to pick the Braves to win this one. 2.5 games back. It's really interesting to see. I've already talked a lot about the Central dumpster fire. Milwaukee's 50-43, Cardinals 50-44, half game back. Then every other team doesn't have 40 wins yet and has over 50 losses. That's Pittsburgh, the Cubs, the Reds. They're all awful, absolutely awful teams. And in the National League West, you got 3 really good teams here in the division: the Giants, the Padres, and then the Dodgers. Dodgers are 60-30. They're challenging the Yankees for the best record in baseball. The Yankees all year had been the team that led baseball in most runs scored and most runs scored against them. The Yankees still lead most runs scored, but the Dodgers have now taken over runs against. They're pitching very well lately and just absolutely blowing teams out. So it's been fun to see. Not if you're a Padres or a Giants fan, though. And as the wild card shapes up at the All-Star break, the Braves are in first. They have a 6-game lead over second place San Diego, who has a 2-game lead over Philly and St. Louis, who are tied for that third wildcard spot, with San Francisco a half game out. So it seems like it'll be those 5 teams fighting for it. As the next closest team, Miami, is 5 games under 500. So interested to see what happens there. If I'm a betting man, I pick, the Braves to win their division, with the Mets being the top wild card team, San Diego being second, and probably picking Philly to be third. Probably going to pick the Cardinals to win the Central, and the Brewers probably to miss the playoffs. But I don't know. I think Brewers really need to pitch well, and lately they haven't been doing so. So, that's really my standings talk there. Getting into the All-Star break festivities here. First, I want to talk about the Home Run Derby. I do like that they put Albert Pujols in here for, his legacy and stuff, but I think he's going to get absolutely slaughtered by Schwarber. He faces Schwarber in the first round. Schwarber's the number 1 overall seed going against Pujols, who's the 8th seed. I think Pujols is going to put on a little bit of a show, but they have this thing where if you hit homers over 440 feet, you get extra time. I don't know that Pujols has that juice left back in him. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Schwarber's a big guy who, is made to be in a home run derby. So I'm picking Schwarber to win that round. On that left side of the bracket, we have Juan Soto, which we'll get to him in just a minute. Juan Soto versus Jose Ramirez. I'm going to pick Jose Ramirez. I think that he's pound for pound the stronger of the two. And I think in the home run derby, it's about strength and about endurance. If you can have both of those, you're going to go a long way. So I think Ramirez is going to win that. And I'd pick Schwarber over Ramirez on that left side. So I have Schwarber in the finals. On the right side, Alonzo versus Acuna. Got Alonzo all day. I love Acuna. I think he's a great player. Don't think that he's really home run derby-esque type player. I'm picking Alonzo for sure. Big, strong guy. Obviously, he's won back-to-back of these. Seager versus Rodriguez, though. This one's interesting. Seager's a strong guy, but he's a shortstop. He's not a guy that, again, is not a home run derby-esque player. If I'm making my home run derbies, Seager's probably not in the top 50 of guys I pick to be in this. Rodriguez, maybe just because of his showmanship and just the way that he plays the game. But, I want big guys in there. Stanton, Judge, Alvarez, those guys, Gallo, big boys. Seager's just not really that. I know he's a good-sized guy, but I don't know. I'm taking Rodriguez in this one, but I think whoever wins it is going to get slaughtered by Pete. And then Pete versus Schwarber in the finals. I think it's going to be a show, but I do have Pete with the 3-Pete to win this home run derby. I think he'll win his 3rd straight home run derby. The guy's incredible. He's made for this. The way that he goes around and sings and bobs his head and does all his crazy stuff. It's a joy to watch him. And in the All-Star game, I'm just excited to see it. There's been so many guys who say that they're not going to play in the game. So they have replacements for this and that. Mike Trout's not playing. Some of our biggest names in baseball just aren't playing, whether they've need the rest or injured, this kind of, this or that. So I'm not really watching it for a competitive standpoint, but I do really like their jerseys. If you haven't seen the jerseys this year, they did a concept where it's just like the team's name and stuff like their own jerseys, but they did the same colorway for the National League and then for the American League. I really like the jerseys, really big on them. I don't know. I think it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to see, obviously. I watch it every year, but that it doesn't really mean everything. It's not deciding who has home field advantage in the World Series like it used to. That's what it used to do, and I'm glad it doesn't, because one game like this, I don't know, I don't think should decide that. I think the best team, team with the best record should have the home field advantage, but it does make it a little interesting in the game, because sometimes, you have guys like Liam Hendricks last year. I think he was throwing a knuckleball in the game. There's a couple other things that were happening that were goofy. So it'll be fun to watch. But one last thing I want to get to before I let you guys go for the night. I mentioned Juan Soto, and he turned down a 15-year, $440 million contract with the Nationals. And so they're exploring a trade for him, which Juan Soto being traded is crazy to think about for me. Soto is one of my favorite players in the league. The way he handles himself in the batter's box, he really owns it. Some of the shenanigans he does, some of the things that he does, body movement, that kind of thing, is nuts. But if you take away all that and just look at the guy's stats, he's insane. He's 23 years old. He's been in the league, I think this is his 5th year now. The last 2 years, he led the league in on-base percentage. In 2020, he had a .490 on-base percentage. It is insane. Absolutely insane. Best hitter in baseball that year. Last year, .465 on-base percentage. Those are Barry Bonds numbers. Getting on base that often is insane. Now, this year, his numbers are down, but he is historically known for having fantastic second half, so I'm excited to see what happens there. But, he still has an almost 900 OPS on the year. He leads the league in walks. They're just scared to pitch to the guy. And again, he's 23 years old. And after this year, he still has 2 years of eligibility left on arbitration. He's not a guy that's going to be a rental you trade for. He's going to be a guy that you're going to trade for, have him for the rest of this year, have him for 2 more years, and then extend him. So I don't know. Some of the trade packages, though, that you're going to have to see for Juan Soto are going to be astronomical. And there's a couple teams that I think could do it. I am going to mention a couple of the teams close by just for any fans who might be watching. Don't think the Cubs are going to even really have the talent to do so. They have the talent, but I don't know if there's no reason to trade away everything because then they don't have anything else. What are you going to surround Juan Soto with? They have Nico Horner, Justin Steele, Brendan Davis, a couple of those guys. They can really trade them, but I don't know. It's going to take an overwhelming amount to get Juan Soto. I don't see it happening with the Cubs. The White Sox, you could trade away Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, a couple of their other young prospects as well. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think that, they might want, Dylan Cease or Luis Robert, which I don't think the White Sox are willing to do that. Which I don't know if I would be either, just because how much you have invested in those two players and you know what you're getting with them. But it would be crazy to see, but I see them as outsiders in this as well. A crazy one here, a couple LA teams that were talked about. The Dodgers obviously always make sense because they always have crazy, crazy prospects. Even though that, they're probably, as far as record-wise, they're probably the best team of our decade, which I don't have those stats in front of me, but they probably have the best record over the last decade. And they always pull off these big trades. They made that trade for Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. So the Nationals are already familiar with them. But I could see, Soto and like Strasburg going to the Dodgers because Strasburg has that big contract, or a guy like Patrick Corbin. And the Dodgers have to give them their top prospects, Bobby Miller, Miguel Vargas, maybe Gavin Lux, some of these other guys, Dustin May. I think the Dodgers have the talent to do so I could see that happening. The payroll would be so insane. Having to pay him, Mookie Betts, Walker Buehler soon. It's insane the amount of money they're going to have to pay. One that I saw was interesting. I don't think this would happen at all. The Angels are going to run into a Shohei Ohtani problem where, they have going to have to pay Ohtani. They already have paid Trout. They've already paid Rendon. But in a situation where you go, okay, we'll give you Joe Adell, Anthony Rendon, and Shohei Ohtani. Who says no in that? Obviously, Ohtani's older than Soto, but Ohtani's one of those guys who should be the MVP every year. He's a starting pitcher and a batter, which I think he's more valuable than Juan Soto. But again, he's much older. You'd be getting out of Anthony Rendon's contract, and you'd be sweetening the pot with Joe Adell, who hasn't really worked out for the Angels. I don't know that the Nationals would do this, but you bring Shohei Ohtani to Washington, D.C., be nuts. It would be nuts. Cardinal fans out there, I think, obviously you have to give up one of your starting outfielders, one of Tyler O'Neill or Dylan Carlson. I don't think that they give up Harrison Bader because Bader's obviously a center fielder. Juan Soto can't play center field. But Tyler O'Neill or Dylan Carlson, Jordan Walker would have to be in this deal. The Cardinals shortstop prospect, I forget his name, the one who just threw 100 miles an hour across the diamond. He'd have to be in it. You have to have a slew of other players doing this, but Cardinals don't really pull off trades like this. I know they got Nolan Arenado, but they really like their prospects. They're always a team that kind of hugs onto those guys, and John Mozeliak is not a guy who really pulls the trigger on stuff like this. But we could see. They've got a lot of young, promising players on that team. So I know Cardinals fans would love to see him in Cardinal uniform, but we'll see what happens there. And then three other teams I want to talk about. The Padres, they're always trying to do something with them. With trades, they could trade CJ Abrams, the shortstop, Mackenzie Gore, the left-hander who's been really good this year, outfielders Robert Hassel and James Wood. They've got the top-end talent. It's like the Dodgers. They have that top-end talent in their farm system, and they could really make it work. Maybe the Nationals also asked for Jake Cronenworth, something like that. We'll see. I think Padres have a really good shot at getting him. I think Padres and Dodgers are the two teams out west that I would really see this happening with. And then both New York teams, not just because I'm a Yankees fan, but I just see it happening with New York or those California teams. The Mets obviously know that they want to go all in all the time with Cohen. He wants to win a championship now. Mets could offer Francisco Alvarez, who a lot of people think is probably the best prospect in baseball right now. That's not in the big leagues. He's a fantastic catcher, DH hitter. I mean, the guy's just insane. They got a bunch of other prospects in the top 100 as well. Brett Beatty, Vientos, Ramirez, Allen, all those guys. The Mets can really afford to trade away guys like that, and they can also take on one of those big contracts. Corbin, Strasburg. It seems like the Nationals are probably going to, Nationals are going to sell their team, is what has been being said. And the new buyer of the team isn't going to want to come in with guys like Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin on the books, big contracts for players that are not good. So, the Mets can afford to take on a guy like Corbin or Strasburg, I mean, even both, for Juan Soto, and give up these prospects because Cohen's willing to do whatever it takes. So the Mets, if the Mets are willing to take on that money, Corbin and Strasburg, and willing to give up Francisco Alvarez, I think they're the favorites, just because of Cohen and what he can do. But the also thing you got to factor in here too is the Nationals aren't going to want to play Juan Soto for 10, 15 years. So having to get traded, to the Mets would have to really blow them away. And I think with Alvarez and with taking on those big contracts, I think they really would. The Yankees also have a shot at it too, just because they're the Yankees. They always are involved on big names like this. First of all, they just need to write a massive check to Aaron Judge anyway, which Steinbrenner's got to show that they're willing to spend the money again. And the Yankees have top-level talent in their farm system as well. They've got Anthony Volpe, who's I think he's ranked 7th right now in the top 100 prospects in baseball. Shortstop, really smooth glove, a guy the Yankees really love. They also have another shortstop, Oswaldo Peraza, who can play kind of everywhere around, second base, third base. They have Jason Dominguez, center fielder, who is otherworldly talent, hit a home run on Saturday in the Futures game. I think he's only, I think he's 20 years old, maybe. So getting Jason Dominguez, Peraza, Volpe, and I think it might take Gleyber Torres too, a really good second baseman. And the Yankees could also eat Corbin's contract as well. I mean, if they're willing to pay Corbin and Soto for Gleyber Torres, Peraza, Volpe, and Dominguez. It'd be insane. And the Nationals will be setting themselves up for success in the future. Gleyber Torres is already an everyday second baseman and a guy who probably could have made the All-Star team this year. And if you don't believe me, go look at the guy's stats compared to the guys who are in there right now. He's had a great year. And shown that, he's comfortable over there at second base. He's got 823 OPS, and he's got 14 home runs. From a second baseman, that's really, really good. Probably should be an all-star. You got Peraza, who can play third base, and you got Volpe, who can play shortstop. And then you got Dominguez up the middle, center field. And you take away, Corbin's contract, I mean, you really could see Juan Soto in the bright lights in New York, whether it be the Mets or the Yankees. But again, it's going to have to be an overwhelming amount of talent going back, because that's what Juan Soto is, an overwhelmingly good player. Again, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens. Again, I was telling a couple of my buddies too, I think that if it doesn't happen at the trade deadline, which I don't know that it's going to happen at the trade deadline, this is something that, he's got 2 more years of control after this. And they're probably going to get an even bigger package if they do it in the winter. So we'll see what happens. But, if a team like the Yankees, going all in this year, if they want to trade Torres and all these prospects, they have DJ LeMahieu, who can play second base. Rizzo plays first. Donaldson plays third. And they already have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa playing short. I don't love that option there, but that's what they've been doing all year. And you put Soto out in the outfield to replace what Gallo's been doing, and you put Hicks on the other side and Judge in center. That lineup is insane. And Juan Soto, a lefty in the stadium, he's going to get a lot of home runs over that short fence in right field. So I enjoy doing this tonight with you guys. I appreciate you stopping by, hanging out with me, spending time on your lovely Sunday evening. Guys, have a great night. And again, share this, send it to people that like sports, and let's grow a community here. I appreciate you stopping in, and everybody have a great night.